This week on In Post, back to basics with some straightforward adjustments on a seascape in Lagos, Portugal. Hi everybody, welcome back to In Post. My name's Scott Davenport and thank you for joining me. Today's photo is going to be really straightforward and simple. Most things went right in camera and didn't need too much over-the-top adjustments, and it's always a good reminder to myself that not every photo needs pounds and pounds of post-processing. Sometimes it's more about the subtle touches, the basics. So let's just dive right in. We'll start off in Lightroom and then bring things over into the ON1 suite to finish it up. So here is the image in Lightroom straight out of the camera. So got most things looking good here. There's a little bit of blowing out, or it's a little hot on the cliff face here. The sky is a little desaturated, so we'll work on that. But otherwise, things are looking pretty good. You can see the histogram. We get some pretty good exposure here. A lot of detail from all the way to the shadows up into the highlights. So things are looking very nice there. And really the only things I've done to this photo is in lens corrections, turn on the profile, and then in basic, did some white point adjustment, tone, and then presence. So I'm going to turn off the preview. We can see the end results of that. And let's, first we can look at lens corrections. That's the obvious one. You see a little bit of bowing. That just happens with every type of lens that we use. And that corrected that straight away. For basic, main thing was white balance. Using the eyedropper, I highlighted that right on this area of foam right here. This is where I want white to be. The tips of these crests of waves, those should be white. And so that's where that came from. Let me undo that. I got a slightly different value, just it all depends on where you click. And from there, I did increase the exposure just a little bit. That was to push the histogram up to the edge here. Brought the highlights way down to recover some of those details here. If I do the before and after, you can see there's more areas that are washed out. And after we've recovered some of those with the highlights. And the same thing, opened up the shadows to get more detail underneath this side of the rocks that we're facing, away from the sun. The sun's hitting this side of the rocks, and these here are in shadows. Opened that up a bit. And adjusted white point and black point. Bring the white point up just a little bit, black point ever so slightly down. How I normally do these is holding down the Option key on a Mac, and I think it's the Alt key on a PC. When you do that and click on the slider, you get clipping to display when you go too far. You can see I've pushed this way up over here. You can see all these white areas is where I'm losing detail. And you can see the histogram too. It's just pushed way up over the top. So we just do that just to get hints that there is some clipping. And for the blacks, I like to have a little black in the photo itself. So you have these deep crevices here. Those are just dark. There's no detail in there. Last but not least, a little bump on the clarity, a little bump on the vibrance. Not too much. I tend to like to do my color work and any saturation in the ON1 suite. Speaking of which, let's bring this over into ON1 right now and do our work. So we're going to do a photo, edit in, and bring it into the Perfect Photo Suite. I brought this into perfect layers. And the reason for that is there's a couple of distracting elements I wanted to tidy up. There's a few of these whitish rocks here and some blurry birds on the beach that I found to be just taking my eyes away and just pulling them off to the edges. And I want your eyes to stay here in the center of this photo. And this one other rock face that's sticking out of the water on the far left. And so I just used a combination of the eraser and the retouch to take care of these few things. So we'll highlight that there. And you can see those things go away. Actually look like something in the foreground here as well. Let's toggle that on one more time. Oh yeah, this little spot down there is now gone. That's good. You can see there's before and there's after. So very subtle things. And now to go and stylize it, we'll bring it into Perfect Effects, and I'll show you the different filters that I applied. So in Effects, I really went after three things: contrast, color, and a touch of sharpening. And it's really just to make the scene stand out a little more. In particular, the foreground rocks and the cliffs, I want to have more punch. And I want a little more color in this. The water was bluer than what I've captured here in the camera, and the sky was a little bluer as well. So starting off, I used dynamic contrast, and this is a straight application of the neutral preset. And so you can see that's really added some nice details into the foreground rocks and into the cliff faces. The surf hitting the sand here is crisper. I did do a little bit of masking to back off the contrast in the center parts of the ocean. So Control M to show you the mask. I don't want the water in the center to be too contrasty or too crunchy. I want that to be soft because I want your eyes to meander through this channel, maybe around the curve here, and then come into the cliff faces and stay in these areas. This is, supporting information, in some sense, a bit of negative space. There's a little bit too much visual interest in here to be complete negative space. But this is the composition, this nice, effectively an S-curve through here. Next is color. So this is for everything overall, and you see the blues become much more pronounced. And that's the Sky Enhancer preset. I did nothing more than that, added the color enhancer, chose the preset, and I like that, and we're on our way to the next filter, which is another color enhancer. Now here you're going to see, when I click on this, watch the rocks in the foreground here, you see the greens of the mosses becoming more pronounced. There we go. Now I did some masking on this one. Let me copy the mask so I can save it, and I'll show you what happened when I applied this to the image as a whole. So reset mask, and you see the cliffs became greener. What I'm using here for settings is a modified version of the Green Enhancer preset. And what Green Enhancer does is it takes the yellow channel and punches that more toward green. And so there's a lot of the yellows in this cliff are now becoming this, oddish, kind of garish, greenish color. And then it saturates it, and we also saturate the greens more. It looks good on the rocks, and it looks terrible on the cliffs. So that's why we have the mask. I'll paste my mask back into place. There we go, and Control M so you can see the mask. And it's a pretty lazy mask because I'm only affecting green tones because that's what I'm adjusting here. Everything else is nominal. All the other colors, I don't know, pick purple. I'm doing nothing there. I'm doing nothing with aqua. So when I paint, I'm only worrying about the colors that I have adjusted, yellow or green. And that was color. Then I did a little bit of sharpening, and this is really just to your taste. So you'll see a little more crispness in the cliffs, much more crispness in the foreground, and then nothing at all in the ocean itself. So you can see from the mask, when you look at it, the darker mask, let me change this to grayscale. This might be a little better. So the darker mask, you see I got no sharpening whatsoever. And in the grayish tones, there's some sharpening going on, and then things that are white is the full effect of this filter. And so the end result is I'm getting crisper on the foreground rocks, somewhat in the background, but the sky and the ocean aren't getting amplified. Finally, the last thing, vignette, just to finish things off. Nice, darken the corners and bring the eyes into the center. Again, wanting to keep your eyes right in here because this is what this photo is all about in this beautiful ocean. So there you have it, some pretty straightforward standard adjustments, especially in the Lightroom. It was really nothing more than getting white balance, black point, white point set so that the photo was well exposed, and then doing some targeted adjustments in the photo suite. You notice I used the color enhancer a couple of times, and I have a separate video that talks all about the different sliders in that. And this was a very good example of where a tool like ON1 has an advantage over what we have in Lightroom because we can be much more targeted with the sections of the photo that we want to adjust color in. For tip of the week, I guess it's knowing that not every photo needs to have over-the-top processing. Sometimes you get a lot of things right in camera, you just need a few little tweaks. And those are actually the really nice ones. That means you're at the location at the right time, you've taken a very good photo, you've exposed it well on camera, and that makes your job back in the studio easier, and that means you get back out faster to take more photos. That is it for this week in post. I hope you enjoyed it and got a tip or two that you can use on your photos. If you have a question, I want to hear from you. Ask your questions through my website. Comments on the YouTube videos I see pretty well. The commenting system there is solid. Twitter is another good option if you're looking to get a quick question answered. I'm on Twitter most days of the week. And otherwise, just, let me know what you think about these videos, what you'd like to hear more about. If you've got an interesting experience in photography or post-processing, it'd be great to share that so we can all become better photographers together. Until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Thanks.